Hi, so today I want to talk about some more of our DBT skills, and today we're going to look at one of the skills that comes from the distress tolerance module. So remember, this module is about getting yourself through a crisis without making the situation worse. It's not necessarily about problem solving, it's not necessarily about changing the situation, but it's about making sure you can get through an emotionally arousing situation without making the situation worse for yourself and for other people. So one of the skills that we're going to talk about today are the TIPP skills, another acronym that is part of the DBT program. And so TIPP will stand for tip of the temperature, intense exercise, paced breathing, and paired muscle relaxation. Now, what I first want to do is really describe to you why these skills are so helpful in the distress tolerance module. And that means getting slightly scientific with you, thinking about some of our biological makeup. So if we think about when we have emotional responses to things, a lot of things change in our body. There is a lot of physiological changes. We might get hot, our heart might start beating faster, we might breathe quicker as well, we might get butterflies in our tummy, we might tense certain muscles as well. And so while all of this is going on in our body, it is sending signals to our brain that is basically saying, hold on a minute, something's going on here. We need to get ready to respond to that. We need to get ready to react to protect ourselves. Our emotions a lot of the time have a better safe than sorry mechanism with them. And the problem is, while all of this is going on in our body, it's really difficult to then tell ourselves to calm down. If you can imagine, your heart's beating fast, you can't breathe properly, you're really, really tense. If somebody then comes up to you and says, you just need to calm down, it's really, really difficult because your body is telling you something completely different. And so we need to be able to turn down that physiological response. And now that comes from having two different nervous systems within us. We have the sympathetic nervous system. Now this is the nervous system that gets switched on in the face of danger or in the face of all those emotions that pop up from us. It is our better safe than sorry system, and it is the system that starts off our fight or flight reaction. So when that sympathetic nervous system is switched on, it's going to be really, really hard to calm down because that nervous system doesn't want you to be calm. That nervous system wants you to be able to react to things, to either fight or to run away from something. So what we need to do is we need to put the brakes on. We need to slow that down and we need to stop that. And one way of doing that is by switching on our parasympathetic nervous system. Now this nervous system is the opposite, you could say. And this is really our emotion regulation system. This is our system that turns down our emotions, that is soothing for us, that is calming from us. And both of these nervous systems cannot be on at the same time. So if our sympathetic nervous system is switched on through an emotional response, we can manage that and turn that off by turning on our parasympathetic nervous system. And that's what these skills are really, really for. They're about switching on that parasympathetic nervous system to get some emotional de-arousal in there and some emotion regulation and just to calm everything down. So these skills are really, really helpful when you're having a really strong physiological response to a situation. They're really helpful when we feel like we're stuck in our emotions as well. Or when we feel like instead of reacting to something, we are going to be quite impulsive in a situation as well. So it can be really helpful for that. And they can be quite fast acting as well. As I said previously, they're not about problem solving, but they are about slowing things down so we can then process things a bit more easy, so then we can put the things into place that we need to. We all know when our physiological arousal is really, really high and our emotions are really high, that's not the best time to be making decisions. For me, it's if I'm in traffic and I'm not getting anywhere fast and then somebody cuts me up. automatically I can feel my sympathetic nervous system come online. I get hot and I get tense, and that anger that comes up as well means that I just can't process things quickly. I can't make the right decisions. So what I need to do in that situation is I need to switch on my parasympathetic nervous system to calm everything down, so then I can make the decisions that are going to be more helpful for me to get through that situation without making them worse. So that was a bit of a background to why we're using these skills and how they're going to be helpful. So now I'm going to take you through each of the letters of the acronym. So by the end of it, you'll have some really good idea of how you can put these skills into place for yourself. So as you might recall, our T stood for tip the temperature. So we've already said that when we get emotionally aroused, everything gets very, very, very quick and everything starts to switch on in the body as well. Tip the temperature is about trying to trigger a dive reflex in us. Now the dive reflex, if we think about those divers that do really deep sea diving, to be able to reach those really low levels, they need to be able to slow everything down in the body, because by slowing everything down for themselves, they use up less oxygen. So by using less oxygen, they can go a lot further down and then come back up again. And that is the reflex that we want to start. We want to slow everything down for us. And so the way that we do that is that you can get an ice pack. It's a really quick, simple way of doing it, one of those flexible ones. Or you can use a bowl of water that's really, really cold, or a bowl of water that you put ice cubes in, works really, really well. And what we do with that, if we're using a bowl of water, is that you take a deep breath and you submerge your face in the water. So right up to your hairline, so the whole of your face is in the water. And you remain there for however long you can, holding your breath. And what happens, the combination of holding your breath and the cold temperature switches on that dive reflex, switches on that parasympathetic nervous system, and starts to slow your heart rate down. And once your heart rate slows down, that will slow down and change the other physiology that's going on in your body. Now, if you don't have a bucket of water or a sink to use, as I said, you can use it with an ice pack. So again, get one of those ice packs, and what you do is you hold it right across kind of the lower side of your forehead, across your eyes, across the top of your nose. Lean forward again is really, really helpful for this, and take a deep breath and hold your breath. So again, you have the holding of your breath and the cold that triggers that dive reflex for you as the first part of our tip skills. And it really just slows everything down and has a really strong impact on our physiology that's inside of us, that then can help things to calm down as well. One thing that I do need to say is not to use this skill if you have any kind of heart problems or any kind of heart defects as well, because as I've said, we slow down the heart rate, and we don't want to do that if you've already got problems with your heart. So you do need to take that into consideration. Maybe check with a doctor before you use this skill as well. So that was the T of tip, and the next letter is I. And I stands for intense exercise. So if we think back to how our body feels in an emotionally arousing situation, maybe if I think back to when I'm in my car and I'm stuck in traffic and somebody's cut me up, what we have is a whole outpouring of adrenaline. And this adrenaline starts us up to get us to react in that situation. And when that adrenaline is running, it can be really, really hard to not respond to that, to not respond quite impulsively, to not fight or flight in that situation. So what we need to try and do is get rid of that adrenaline in a different way that's going to be more helpful for us. And so one of the ways of doing that is intense exercise. When we do really intense exercise, that uses up the adrenaline and therefore calms everything down. So you might want to run on the spot really, really hard for 30 seconds to a minute, or do star jumps, or do burpees. Not one that I like particularly, but burpees work really well as well, because they're an intense exercise as well. You might want to do some shadow boxing as well. any exercise that you can do that is really quick, that you don't need any equipment for, because we're probably not going to have any with us, and that is really, really intense. And so it will use up that adrenaline. And once you've done that intense exercise, what you should feel is that things are calmer for you. Things don't feel as pent up for you because you've got rid of that adrenaline, which was otherwise kind of going to come out in other ways that were going to be unhelpful to you. So one of our first P's is paced breathing. Again, as I said in the beginning, what happens when we get emotionally aroused is that our breathing often becomes really, really fast, quite ragged as well. We can't get our breath. And that's really unhelpful when we're trying to process information as well, because as we know, our brain needs oxygen. And if we're kind of breathing all over the place, that then impedes the amount of oxygen we're getting, and that makes it really difficult for us to problem solve and process information as well. And our breathing then affects all the other physiological systems that we've got going on. We're likely to get hotter and our heart will beat faster. We're likely to get more tense as well. So what we really need to try and do is calm down our breathing as well and get it more into a rhythmical pattern as well. So when you're doing this, it doesn't really matter how long your in-breath or your out-breath are. What we want is we just want to make it smooth. So we have an in-breath and an out-breath and an in-breath and an out-breath, which sometimes doesn't happen when we're emotionally aroused. So if we just sit for a moment, and it's really helpful to change our posture when we do this, so really sit upright, open up the chest, sit with our shoulders back, and then just taking a breath in and out, and in and out, and in and out. So just having that pattern of breathing just slows everything down, just brings our heart rate back down as well. Now you might need to do that several times for things to slow down. You might do it for a period of time and then your breathing starts to get quite ragged again, and just go back to your breathing, that slow rhythmical breathing in and breathing out. And you can say that to yourself as well. If you really need help to focus on that, you can use that as a mantra and say, breathing in, breathing out. And that will really help you regulate that as well. Because also the time it takes you to say breathing in and the time it takes you to say breathing out slows down your breathing as well and makes it quite a bit more rhythmical than it was before when it was bouncing around all over the place. So we've so far had the T, so tip the temperature, I for intense exercise, and the first P, which was paced breathing. So our last part of the tip skills is our second P, which stands for paired muscle relaxation. So as we discussed as well, another physiological symptom of our emotions is that our muscles tense up. So we find it in our fists, in our arms, in our shoulders, even in our jaw as well. That gets quite tense as well. And the whole time that our muscles are tense, we are sending signals to our brain that says, stay on high alert. Something is happening. You're going to need to respond to this. I'm going to need you to run away, or I'm going to need you to fight. And we need to switch off that signal that's being sent to us if there is nothing in the environment that is dangerous to us, which often happens with our emotions as well. And so one way of doing that is by using the different muscle groups in the body and by tensing them and then releasing them. So really paying attention to that tension and then that release as well. And you can do this with whatever muscles you want in your body, and you can do it in whatever order that you want in your body. But I'm going to just talk you very quickly through the route that I usually take. And so I would usually start at my toes. And so I would scrunch up my toes. I know you can't see them at the moment. I would scrunch up my toes in my shoes, hold that tension really, really tight for a couple of seconds, and then release it. I might do that 1 or 2 times. And then I would move up to my knees and I would squeeze my knees and my thighs together really, really tightly so you feel that tension in the muscles, and then I would release. And again, do that a couple of times. Then you might bring yourself to your stomach and your torso, your abdomen, and pull that belly button in really, really tight and suck it into the back so that you feel that tension just in your abdomen. Hold that and then release it. Then I might move up and I might move that up to my shoulders. So really pulling up my shoulders. There's tension in my shoulders, holding on to that, and then releasing them. I might do my arms and my fists because we often feel tension there. So I might make a fist and then pull my arms up towards me, holding that attention again, and then just releasing it out. And each one of these, doing it several times, so maybe 2 or 3 times to practice. And then we can move all the way up to our face. Now this is going to be a really pretty picture for you. And we might tighten all the muscles in our face. So scrunch up our eyes and our nose and our mouth and our jaw. Hold it really, really tight and then release it as well. So we're working through all the muscles in the body to tighten them and then release them. And that action of tightening and releasing just lets go of some of that tension that we're holding in our body. Now, additional to that, it's called paired muscle relaxation, because what we can do over time when we practice this is pair it with a word. So each time that you tense a muscle and then let go of that muscle, you might want to say to yourself, relax. So tightening your toes, then releasing it, and at the same time saying relax. And the more you practice this, what you will then find is that that word has now been paired with your muscles relaxing. And so the more you practice, you'll get to a point where actually you don't need to do the tension part of it. You can just say relax and your muscles will have learned that's what they need to do and they will relax automatically. Now that's not going to happen overnight. It's something you really need to practice. So practicing it, you're going to have to do the tension and then the release. But the more you practice it, saying that word, and that can be whatever word that you want to use for that, the more your muscles will learn that. And then you can use that word as a cue in a situation where you're emotionally aroused for your muscles to naturally relax and get rid of that tension that they're holding on to. So they were very quick overview of our TIPP skills. So the skills really used to switch on that parasympathetic nervous system, to turn down all of that physiological arousal that's going on in our body that has a propensity to make us react very quickly to a situation rather than responding to it in a manner that is helpful. So remembering them as T stands for tip the temperature, I stands for intense exercise, the first P stands for paced breathing, and then the last P stands for paired muscle relaxation. So go away, practice those skills and see how they can be helpful for you in a situation where your emotions have switched on and you've got all that physiological arousal for you. See how well they work just to calm things down for you.